to our guest speaker tonight. Mr. KYRKOS is not only an MP at the European Parliament, but also he is the Vice Chair of the Delegation to the EU-Turkey Joint Parliamentary Committee. Therefore, he knows a lot about Turkey, and he has very sincerely been working hard for the improvement of relations between EU and Turkey since years. I do not wish to continue any further introducing Mr. KYRKOS, because I would like to leave the floor to Haluk Nuray, not only our board member, but also a person who had been following Turkey-EU relations very closely since 20 years. He will now tell us more about tonight's topic and our guest speaker. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Welcome to my 1,222nd speech. Not that much. Now I will try to prepare the ground for Mr. KYRKOS, to give you some basic framework information about what he will be speaking. As Melih said, I'm working on EU-Turkey relations for so long. And so long, but I'm always having the same questions in the last 30 years. Almost the same questions. They tell me, why should we support the EU? What is in it to like? What is in it for me? Aren't they thinking? This is what I heard. They're not in a position. Or there's some people there asking, are you going to be a member? When? Then they ask, will there still be a EU at the time of our membership? Such questions. People are not talking much about EU nowadays. And when they are talking, mostly with negative notations and criticism. They are criticizing. We are criticizing. There are a lot to criticize, really. But in my belief, EU has created a lot of really important values that we should carry forward to the future. I can criticize EU until morning, but also I can find a lot of values of the good EU. I will not, of course, list them all, but I picked two of them for you. One is peace. EU was a peace project at the very beginning. You see the map here. It is in the last 520 years. The period we are in is the longest peaceful period in these lands. It was a peace project and it's successful as a peace project. Can you imagine two EU neighbors fight each other? It's unthinkable. So they succeeded this. They established EU 60 years ago. They built it on hope for peace, and they succeeded. Today, they're trying to rebuild the European Union, but this time, unfortunately, not on hopes, but on fears. This is the first one, but successful as a peace project. These values, this one and the next one I can tell you, are forgotten, unfortunately, by the people on the street. It was just thrown away to the dusty shelves of our social memory. We remember it only when we lose it. It's like breathing. When you are breathing, you don't remember you have this value. Second, the EU has created a concession measure. It is very important, really important. This is what we need in the 21st century, because we are going to be facing global challenges. We already started, like the climate, like the international terrorism, global terrorism, like nuclear threat started again. Things like this, the artificial intelligence, technological developments, and global changes, global challenges, global problems need global solutions, and we need global efforts. But today, when we look at the world, we see not global cooperation, but multilateralism is falling down. And the unilateralism and nationalism is rising again. Look at the world, China, US, Asia, Africa, everywhere, except one place, EU. For me, EU, actually, a first experience of global cooperation of nation states with soft power. With soft power, I mean, before it was tried in Europe, in other parts of the world, by force. First time ever, a nation state just gives away its sovereign rights to a pool, without force, with its own will. It is very important. For instance, every nation is proud of their money, and Germany gave away mark, their valuable mark. So it is very important. If Europe succeeds in finding such a path for international global cooperation, perhaps this formula could be copied in the global level. It is a real good experience. But if it fails, then as a global society, we need to find from scratch a new way to unite humankind to face the nuclear war threat, the ecological collapse, technological disruption, ideology challenge. Ideology challenge, what I mean? In 1938, we had 3 ideologies or stories to tell to people. We had 3. In 1968, we had 2. In 1998, we had only 1, liberal democracy. In 2008, we have 0. Even it collapsed, so we don't know what took place. So we really need to integrate better, to keep borders and our minds open. And saying this, that brings me to my last point, the Turkey relations. It's difficult to summarize a 55-year story in 2 minutes, but I'll try to make it. What I observed in the last 32 years, of course I look back to 55 years. It started 55 years ago, and I'm seeing 55 years of full ups and downs all the time, but more downs than ups, let me say this. A chronic state of tension. There is always a tension. I don't remember 3 consecutive years that I feel myself comfortable about the EU-Turkey relations. Something happens all the time. And that brought a huge amount of wasted social energy and political development. It is wasted really. Of course we have some gains, but the potential was much bigger than this. Also what I observe is lack of mutual trust and political will. From the very beginning, from the first day, you cannot see mutual trust and political will, positive or negative. For instance, EU never had the courage to say no to Turkey. Every generation of politicians just preferred to transfer the subject to the next generation of politicians, and it goes on like this. But still, yes, it started in 1958, we had association agreement, additional protocol, customs union, then in 2005 we started to negotiate. Membership is still a target, a moving target, going away. But it didn't, of course, go as we like. It didn't go as a straight line, but like this, ups and downs, all the way. And what we have seen, interesting things like 3 years ago, I remember the Prime Minister of that time, Professor Tansu Çiller, was saying, I believe that in 3 or 4 years Turkey will not only be in customs union with the EU, but will be a full member. And that was said, it was accompanied by fireworks during the day. The same thing happened in 2004, when the negotiation decision had taken. Again, it was during the day, we had fireworks. We were so happy. Then the next day, the next year, we were down again. Like this, ups and downs, up and down. And in summary, a continuing and never-ending process with no happy end in the foreseeable future, unfortunately. One sentence today, this is the situation. This is the political aspect, political side. But something happens in practice, in the Commission building, in the Parliament. Things are happening about Turkey. Let me tell just a few more sentences about this and finish. It works like this. When you apply for membership, there's something called conditionality. They say, okay, we want this level, you are there, so to catch up, you need to fulfill some obligations. You say, okay, I will. Then you accept their supervising. Supervising is done like this. European Commission prepares a report on how your progress, if you are progress, what you do on the way to EU. And they just publish a report every year. Now they're every 1.5 years, but before it was every year. We call it the progress report. Commission writes this report to the attention of European Parliament and the Council, not to Turkey, but Turkey. If we like the report, we accept it. If we don't, we return it without opening the envelope. Although it is not written to us, it is written to the European Parliament and the Council. Still, we don't accept it. The report started in 1998. Until now, 19 progress reports are published, 2,500 pages. I don't think, maybe Alan, are you here? Maybe Alan read them all, huh? And maybe me. They sent the report to the European Parliament and the Council. European Parliament reads the report, examines, works on it, and gives a response. It's the Parliament report about the Commission's report. And one is about to be prepared. Parliament report on the 19th Commission report will be voted 11th of March, if I'm not mistaken. And then at the same time, it goes to Council. Both Commission and the Parliament can make recommendations. They don't always do. Sometimes they do. This time they are doing. Mr. KYRKOS will tell you about what they are recommending to the Council. Council are EU leaders. It is the godfather of the European Union system. They say the last word. They don't have to follow the recommendation of Commission or Council. For instance, Commission said Kosovo fulfilled all the criteria, abolish the visa. Parliament says, yes, Commission is telling the truth, abolish the visa, and the Council says, no, I will not. They say the last word. They are the kings. But still it is important. This time, the Parliament is recommending the Council to suspend the accession negotiations. To suspend. Suspend for me is to terminate. It is the same thing. Suspending is terminating because for suspension, you need qualified majority. Only 2/3 of the votes they can suspend. In 10 years' time, let's say Turkey has changed, a democratic state again, wants to restart the negotiations, then you need unanimity to restart it. This is the problem. If one country, anyone, Lithuania, for instance, Estonia, doesn't accept vetoes, you cannot start. And I don't think we can come to this point that we catch the 2004 again. It is very difficult. So we, as IKAVE, my organization, and similar organizations supporting Turkey's EU target, just don't want this process to start. The Parliament recommends, Council accepts. When we ask to our friends, they say, no, Council will never do such a stupid thing. Why not? Why not? Our politicians, really wise people who don't make any mistake, who started all the wars, the trade wars, the real wars, who used the atom bomb. They were all politicians. They can make stupid things. It can happen. They say, no, it will not happen. It's right, but they will not accept. What if they will? If they will, it is the end of Turkey's EU dream. So we are in such a critical junction again. I saw so many critical junctions passed, but this time it may not, because all this happen, these ups and downs, I showed you, create the impression that it will always come up automatically. No, it may not. It may not. It is not physics. It's not electronics. It is not mechanics. It is politics. It may not happen. So we're at that point now. And Mr. KYRKOS is a member of MEP who is preparing these reports and who will be voting in March 11th for the report. So he will tell you much more about the Parliament's position on EU-Turkey relations, the report, and anything he wants. So, floor is yours, Mr. Krikos.
So, good evening, everybody. I'm honored to be here in the request of TOP in the premises of IKV. I'm always amazed of the work that it's been done in Brussels from our Turkish friends, and also we have very good relations with the permanent representation and the embassy, because not only as a neighbor of Turkey, because I come from Greece, but also as a European who looks to the future and not to the past, I can see why we need Turkey, why Turkey needs us, and how we should work together. Haluk Bey said about the values of the EU. Of course, I totally agree. Peace has no countable value, but it's what makes people be alive. But I would also like to add that the big miracle of this EU is coming together without a war to create a huge family of member states. Never in history has this happened in another country. In the US, they went through a civil war. In Russia, you remember, in China, also civil war. All the big agglomerations of nations came after bloody wars, except Europe. And we came together to escape from war, but also to create the tool that our societies could grow economically and socially. And this growth we managed, and now Europe is by far the best place for anyone to live. Although we still have poverty, although we still have social problems, although looking from the inside we can talk until morning about what we should change and we could change. If you look from outside, then yes, Europe is the best place to live in terms of freedoms, social justice, and of economic conditions. So this miracle didn't happen by chance. It was designed, but it was designed in another way, to have also a political framework which does not appear. It's economic union, mainly. Because, as our host explained, we have the council, the godfather, which is not democratically elected as such, but are the representatives elected in each member state. But by that definition, each member state, we have already seen the problem, because each prime minister, each minister has his country or her country view, not the whole. So the idea of the forefathers was to create an integrated political union, which for historical reasons did not come. And we are suffering because it did not come. So for every decision we have to have many times unanimity, other times qualified majority, but anyone can veto some very important issues. So it's not working that good. The machinery is like having sand in the cogs. So we are jumping from time to time. We're not as productive as we should. We delay along to take action. And we pass to our people the idea that we cannot respond to crisis, we cannot make sure that their lives will be better, their children's lives will be better than their own, that their pensions will be there increasing, their salaries will increasing, growth will be stable. Citizens are afraid now. And where they are afraid, when they are afraid, of what may happen tomorrow, they look back and say, remember 50 years ago it was the war, but after the war, what a good period it was, or at 2000, or at 1990. So the past, through the filter of remembrance, is always pink, is always nice. We were even younger then. Remember how good it was? But as we cannot take back the years, we cannot take back that past. So the only way to Europe is forward. If you go back to national states or to member states that have more and more priorities of their own, then the whole house of Europe is not crumbling, because Europe is here to stay. There is no way that Europe will not be here after 50 years. If our planet is here, Europe, the European Union, will be here. But we don't want just a shell. We want an active factor in the international relations. We want the strongest element because we need it. We need it for the climate change. We need for the globalization to have rules, because without rules, the ones that low in the ground suffer the most. And we need democracy and working people rights. So without Europe, we see that all these suffer. Imagine a planet without the strong hand of Europe, or the hand that we could have. So this is why I believe that the future is linked with how the European Union will keep its course, will strengthen its services. And we have Turkey. We have Turkey as a neighbor. We have Turkey since I was almost not born, having kind of relations with the EU, and then going into stages, never having the answer why we are not going forward. Why? What is the reason? Is the fear of some member state about the Muslim Turkey? Some right-wingers shout about that. You're Muslims, never be in Europe. But we have Muslim population in Europe and we have no problem. Is it because Turkey is too big? Germany was too big. And it became bigger because of the EU. And the EU stands on its feet, is very strong because of a strong Germany. So we need strong partners. Is it because you have a huge population? We love a huge population, or we should love, because we are growing old, and after 30 years, we will not have the social state we have now, because we don't have young people to work. No work, no young people working means no money going to the pensions and to health system. So it collapses. Europe without a social state is nothing. So I would love Turkey because it's a neighbor, because it has a young population, and most of the population in Turkey, one way or another, lives under the same ideals that we have. It's a fallacy that many times we use the word European ideals. It's a European system that help us support these ideals. But the ideals we can share are not European, are also Turkish. And this is very important to remember. Now, as I told you, the question still remains unanswered. Why? It's still a distance. And I will try to tell you about my experience from Greece, and maybe you will see where is the problem with Turkey. Since 2010, where our economy collapsed, I'm talking too close. Is it better now? Okay. So, since 2010, where our economy collapsed, we lived by borrowing money. So, who wants to lend to a country that has almost collapsed? Nobody. But of course, we're part of the European Union, so they try to see what happens when a country collapses. Nobody knew. There was no manual for a European country to collapse economically. How could you imagine that? But we did, we managed. We were the first. So they had to find out rules, how they would lend us money, how they would cut the debt, how. And it came in the form of a package, rules. Rules that dictated the relation. First memorandum for 2 years, second memorandum, other 2 years, third memorandum. Every memorandum is an agreement. We note down what we have to do. So the second memorandum was 600 things to do. The third memorandum was 340 things to do, an Excel file with things to do. As Turkey has to fulfill 72 obligations to get the visa, we have 600 obligations to get the money for the loan, or 340 obligations, an Excel file. So it looks easy. You do, you get paid. And this Excel file contained reforms. Judicial reforms, public administration reforms, health reforms, economic reforms, allowing business to function better reforms. Every type of reform you can imagine, it was there. It is a blueprint how to reform a country, which is European. It's not Kosovo, it's not Bosnia, it's a European country. How you can transform it into an economy which is competitive. That was the question. To get out of the memorandum, you need to be competitive, so other people will lend you money. So 1, 2, 3. The third finished in August. Are we competitive? No. Is anybody willing to lend us money? No. What's the European Union doing? They gave us a gift of almost 14 billion and said, after this time is finished, you will be able to go to the markets. Will we? I don't know. Will Turkey be a member in the end of the negotiation? Nobody knows. But what we learned through this process of Memorandum 1, 2, 3, Europe is not our mother. They write down the rules. They write down the reforms that we have to embrace and implement. And if we don't, they say, okay, you did 1/3 of the work. Let's work together again. Another memorandum. We take the ones that you didn't finish, we put some new, because time is changing, and we create a new plan. And then a third plan. In the end of the third plan, they say you're hopeless. But get the package and we'll hope that the market will work in favor. The important line is, Europe is not your mother. Europe will not run the country. If you want us, ask. But it's not the way we do it in liberal democracies. We cannot have a protectorate in Greece, put ministers in place, that every morning you wake up, see, today is day 1 of the reform of judicial system. So, scrap the judges, put new ones in place, change the laws, make them from 1 million to 1,000, so the system can work, and let's go to day 2 to make the next reform. It's not working like that in liberal democracies. So no one came in Greece to be the minister. And the ministers did not want to change because the system worked. Okay, why should we change it? We get elected, we get the ministry, so it's working. Maybe the economy has some problem, but the system is working. I am getting elected. My party is getting elected. And then another party is getting elected. The new minister comes and says, see, the system is working, I was elected. So the real question is, Greece did not want the changes, but we are in the EU. So they will find a way to lend us more money, and during this procedure, we pay, because we lost 25% of our GDP. The wages of the people disappeared, half. The pensions disappeared. Workplaces disappeared. but we are still alive. So, during this process we learn, this is knowledge, but it's not applicable in political life, but we learn. Europe is not our mother. So, coming back to the relations EU-Turkey, we had the chapters. Okay, we did not open some chapters. Okay, there are special conditions why I didn't. No need to discuss now. But over the 30 plus chapters, every chapter is a recipe for reforms. Every chapter has huge number of reforms detailing how you should change every part of the society. As I told you, we did in Greece, we had in the memorandum. Judicial, what do you want to do? Amazing reforms that come out of the experience of the European Union. These things, these reforms work, and they are the best practices. That's why they are in the chapters, that's why they're in the memorandum. They work, they really produce results. Business runs freely, people can find an easier job, the environment is protected, energy is created better and better and cheaper. So it works. The only thing you have to do is implement. People can talk freely, parties can react and make coalitions or appear and disappear. Political life is not polarized, not having authoritarian regimes. It's working. It's Europe, look. And the question is, did Turkey want to have these reforms? Or, as Greece did, Turkey said, we love these reforms and we will implement them at a certain point. So out of the 100 points in one chapter, you get 25. And Turkey said, you see, 25. But the reforms is a package. As a constitution also, is a package. You cannot pick nice things for constitution from other countries, shake them well and put them in your own constitution, because it doesn't work that way. The same with reforms. If you don't have the total, the whole, it doesn't work. So what we saw from our side is that Turkey was very hesitant. Some ministers were working very fast. Other ministers were working the other way very fast. Contradictions appeared. The work was not being done. And every report in Turkey said the same things. The legislative is going better, but not good enough. Freedom of the press have some problems. It's going well, but not good enough. And there are some also reservations on that. Working conditions for people, you know, the freedom to form associations is going well, but not that well as it should. So in every report, repeating, as we heard in Greece, in every report on our memorandum, we heard the same things. Yes, Greece is going well, but, and this huge but is a stone that we had in around us, drowning us. And the same happened in Turkey. No one embraced the reforms like their own. So the reforms did not take place, as I told you, as a package to function. If you have a machinery and you take out 3 or 4 parts and you plug it, most probably it will not function. There is a possibility it will explode, but it will not function. So we need all parts. You cannot, for example, have independence of justice and you set the leaders, the ones that choose the others. If you put these people in place, then these people are your people. And if these people are your people, the next people in line will be your people too. So it doesn't matter if you have good courtrooms or a good indexes in the justiciary and good laws approximately. Who is judge? Who is the judge? This is the problem of Turkey. Let's come to the EU. The biggest political issue is that Turkey, as Greece, wanted a mother. Needed, not wanted, they did not want, needed a presence in the country to explain every day to everyone what these reforms meant for everyday life. Because they meant everything. Every change in these reforms reflected on the average person on the street. Everyone, each and every one of them. The allies for these reforms that the political system embraced in wording, the ally force to push for these reforms are the people. Without the people, nothing can happen. If the people want them, then the political elite will think first how to escape, but two, how to implement. And when you start implementing the reforms, there comes a time when you say, do I really want to go that road or no? But it is pain. It's bringing money to the country, it's bringing quiet to the people, it's bringing peace in my country. Can I escape? And the answer is no, you can't. Because when you enter liberal democracy and you do the economic and judicial and social reforms, then there is no way out, because they are working. And nobody goes back on a system that works. In our side, the European side, we're always too hesitant. We don't go to other countries. We don't intervene. We don't make 40 offices in 40 regions of Turkey to explain every day what the European Union is. We don't do it in Greece. And you see many Greeks, after so many years of memoranda, still saying, the lenders are to blame for the economy. Without the lenders, we wouldn't exist now. But still, people have fears, and they like conspiracy theory. You have to be there every day to show that Europe is a package, that it is very attractive. And it works. So, finish the history. What you're doing now, we have this report. This report is bad because official, it's not, as Haluk said, it's not stopping, termination, but it's suspension. It's even worse because we fool ourselves. It is termination. We should say that. So anyone could understand that now we are talking about terminating the relations with Turkey, the accession relations. Turkey will not go away. But as a tool, the accession process is always there, and Turkey may use it. And we use it to pinpoint things that happen in Turkey, which is very important also for people in Turkey. But the most important thing is that it exists. And now there is a judiciary reform coming from the government. Is it coming because of the accession process? The government says no. It is a reform that should happen. I don't know. I want to think that having the accession process there as a tool, as a way, as a target, as a scope for a generation of Turks is helping the government say that we need these reports. Because it's also a blueprint. You don't need to try and invent the wheel as we do. You know, we always invent the wheel, although the wheel exists already. Imagine. So, your reforms in Turkey, you don't need to find them. We can discuss about them. We don't want to push them to you. But they are there and they are working. So copy, please. And let us work with you to implement it in the way that your system can accept them. So this is the accession process. It will not finish in 2 years' time or in 5 years' time. But it is a tool that shapes the future. And it should be there. This government, next government, many governments, but the tool should be there. Because it's a dream. And I would like to share it, because it's also mine, to Turkey to be part of this EU, because we need Turkey. And of course, if you look around the map, also Turkey, with 2/3 of foreign investments coming from Europe, with a huge trade, we have 150 billion and more, and with the customs union, which is already delayed to be modernized, Turkey's place is next to EU. It's not to China, it's not to Russia or India, you know. Every day you can turn and look on the east and say, I found a new partner. Beware of the Chinese, beware of the Russians. The EU has rules. They don't, and they have their own, but not the rules that you like, Turkey likes, or Turkey can live with. So, a joint dream with many people, many Turkish people and European sides I have seen, or Greeks, is Turkey to be a member, Turkey to work with Europe again. Okay, the membership will or will not come, but working together. So this amendment, this report, may shut the door, which is unacceptable for me. Other parliamentarians may think differently. That's why in the parliament we have all voices and we work together to find the middle ground. So we have worked, and the Greens, the GUE, part of the Socialists, having amendments in this report to change it. To say that, okay, we stay as we are now, we see the reforms that Turkey will do, and until Turkey does some steps towards independence of justice and democracy, we stay as we are, but we don't suspend the accession. It's an easy amendment, and we will put it also to the vote. First, we will discuss with our parliamentarians why we shouldn't kill the dream. Because if we do, two things will happen. I will start with the second. The people will feel betrayed because it's shutting the door on their faces. And it's very interesting that not even one person from Turkey and persons that strongly against the government, people in jail, people, journalists left out of their jobs, people that do not support this government that Turkey has. Not one of them told us, okay, Mr. KYRKOS, to show Turkey that it's not acceptable, suspend it, terminate the relations. We'll find other ways. Because they know that this dream has many sides. And one is political freedom, other is personal freedom, other is economic freedom. It's a package. So if we shut the door, we let them out. They will find their own way. Turkey will not disappear, as I told you. But why kick the tools away? And why kill the dream? Why? How could I look at them and say, we will not have the closest relation. We can have others, but the closest, which is more productive, it's forever gone. It's very difficult. The first is that the government says that after the referendum and the elections and the constitutional changes, they look towards Europe. Every day that we meet, and tomorrow we go to Ankara to discuss, every day the Turkish side, parliamentarians from Turkey, but also other officials say that we want to make better the relations with Europe, we want to work for the visa liberalization, we want the customs union, we want to work for accession. And when I hear that, part of me said, come on, if you did, if you really wanted it, you could have done it. I told you, as Greece did not, same Turkey did not. But on the other hand, I say, if you really say that to us, let's work together. It's very easy. Let's start with the chapters that are open. Let's open new chapters. Are you ready? But not to work for 20 years. Let's put down the roadmap of each chapter. Let's start with judiciary, let's say, because it's one that already some work has been done and undone. So we know the path. Are you ready? Let's do it in front of the people, together with your people, so with citizens, together with our citizens, It's a challenge, and we never step back from a challenge. So, my position would be, even if I am not quite sure, because I know the Greek government, which always said, yes, yes, you look upon the European memorandum, but did not want to do anything. So, my feeling is that we're very close, and our governments say things and really believe other things. But as we were obliged by reality to take the steps that we are taking, I think that in the same way Turkey will also be obliged by reality to work together with Europe again. So it's a challenge, don't lose the chance. So we have in January vote in AFET committee, which is the Foreign Affairs Committee. We vote for these amendments. The parliamentarians are not part of AFET, but we are not allowed to put amendments in a committee that it's not ours, but through friends I also co-signed an amendment that takes off the accession postponement, the accession is suspension. So, it's not me only, it is also you. And it is very important for the parliamentarians in AFET, first step AFET, parliamentarians there get not the government's position, which is known, not party's position, which it's easy to find, but society's position. NGOs and civilians writing to them, or making a common letter, or both, telling them, don't kill the dream. Don't vote for stopping, terminating, for suspending the accession, which is termination. We ask you not as a favor. We ask you because, first, we need it. Second, we think that you need it too. And we are the voice of the people. Not the whole people of Turkey. There are many voices. But this letter is our voice. And another letter is the voice of other people. So the parliamentarians get out of the shell of the parliament, saying, Turkey, yes, President Erdogan, Syria, I don't know what, problems with people being let out of their work, people, journalists being jailed, Demirtas being still in jail. It's not that, because these may exist and there are many opinions on what should happen or if they are really there. But the main issue is not that. We don't vote for Demirtas, we don't vote for Afrin, we don't vote for journalists. Journalists, by the way, want us to vote, to get out this suspension. But people, it's a decision that hurts your future. And as that, you have the right to reply. You're taking a decision for my future. So at least, allow me to send you a letter to explain that either we have a joint dream or your dream is empty. So don't kill mine, make it ours. This is what I would do if I was a Turkish citizen or an NGO or somebody who wanted not just to listen to some parliamentarians saying what they are trying to do, because we are trying on our own, of course, but we are not enough. And we need your support. I think I said too much. The interesting thing for tonight is to have questions and answers. So, excuse me for the time I took, but it is a rare occasion to talk in front of many Turkish friends. I have done it, but in smaller numbers. Thank you very much for listening to me, and if you have questions, I will be more than glad to reply.
Before we go to the questions and answer session, I would like to invite Mr. Solakoğlu, the first consul of the Turkish Embassy to Belgium. Mr. Solakoğlu, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you for organizing this very interesting evening. Although I'm the first counselor of the bilateral embassy, so we are not dealing directly with the European Union issues, but still, in the last 27 years that I've been in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we have always been dealing with the European Union. So wherever you go, whatever the subject is. So this is a very important project. As our Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs, Faruk Kaymakçı, says all the time, this is one of the most important projects of the world. Turkey's EU accession process is not only a country's accession process to an organization or international union or something like that. It has a very deep meaning for both Europe, Turkey, and the world. So from that point of view, I would like to thank you again for this genuinely honest approach to the Turkish-EU relationship. I think when we look at the EU-Turkey adventure, we must have maybe two different approaches. This is the first approach is the strategical approach. So from Europe or from Turkey, those who decide should look to the world and should realize more or less what does it mean. So what is the meaning of the Turkey's journey to the European Union, and what is the meaning of an European Union, Turkey in it. So this is the political part and strategical part. That's a big policy. I think when we look at the process, more than the second process, so technical process, negotiations, etc., I think we had problems in the first process. Not only from the Turkish side, but also from the European side. This message that Europe needs Turkey and Turkey needs Europe was not clear enough sometimes in Europe, when I was working also in European capitals as a diplomat. And the first example is France, Sarkozy, and then comes Merkel, although now she has a little bit different approach. But still, when let's say the project seems endless and there is no end in it, so the technical process is very difficult to deal with. And this was maybe the thing that discouraged Turkish politicians, but also Turkish people. Because you say that, yes, okay, we will start negotiations, we have to transform things, not only the judiciary, but also the environmental standards. Nobody would be against it, but still it needs some concessions from your way of life, economical, let's say, difficulties, etc. But you should believe that dream will come true. So I like very much the idea of dream, but you should also have some faith in you in order to make efforts to go to that dream. I think we have lost it somewhere after 2004, 2005, and when Turkey made an incredible leap in 2004. I was in Brussels. I was a diplomat of the Turkish delegation to the European Union, and I was at that summit. I remember because we have lived, it was a very historical moment, and we had all this faith that it will go like that. But then, in the next, let's say, 1, 2, 3 years, we have started to hear from Sarkozy, from Merkel, in any case, it will never happen. So why bother for a process that will never happen? So it would be for any Turkish politician to tell Turkish people that yeah, we will make efforts, but it will not happen. So it's a very difficult thing for a politician. So that was the idea, the main difficulty. Because I also remember, before starting the accessions, there were some pre-accession, the pre-negotiations with the Turkish institutions coming to Brussels, with their counterparts to the, within the European Commission. And each time when the Turkish delegation left, we were talking about our European friends, and they were saying, well, we are surprised, they are so ready, it's a state. And just believe me, they were saying that after having an experience of enlargement with Eastern European countries. And so they said, but you are ready institutionally, because you have so many able people, you have already a well-established system, so it will be very easy to transform the system because you have a system also. And so we were very hopeful. But then we have lost that hope. So today, I think, I will not go very long, but today we are in the brink of losing the last dim of hope. And I can assure you that at least 45-50 million of people in Turkey still deep down somewhere believes in that, because geography also is something, economy is something, also culturally. Turks prefer to live as Europeans in many standards, let's say, ecological standards. Nobody wants a dirty weather, for example. So they want it. So, but they need some incentive from the European side. I think once they have this political, I would say, signal, they would be maybe forcing more their politicians to act alongside this road and to make the necessary in order to go forward. But today, the suspension, when we are talking about suspensions, it reminds me always a broken arm. Suspension is something like that. So it's a very frightening image. And that's why, of course, Turkey does not want that suspension, and any intelligent European would not want to, as you have put it. So this process is very important for Europe and for Turkey, and the process, even though you can call it show, must go on. So we cannot, we don't have the luxury to cut it off in order to please some populist politicians anywhere in Europe. Thank you very much.
As Melih said, question and answer session. Last time we decided not to call it question and answer, but interactive session. Just before we start, why don't we three stay here to answer the question, three speakers. But you talked about the public opinion. Let me give you two figures, two recent surveys. One, they asked Turkish people, who is your number one enemy? It was US with 86%, EU with 82%. On the other hand, the same people. Another survey. Would you say yes or no if there's a referendum on Turkey's accession to the European Union? 65% said yes, I'm going to vote yes. So we must be very careful talking about the public opinion. It's something like this. Please come here. Melih has a microphone, so if you want to ask a question, just raise your hand, introduce yourself. No, just come and stay here. Just wait. So please introduce yourself. Be brief, just a question. If you're going to make a comment, say it's not a question, I'll make a comment, so let's not wait for a question at the end.
Hello, good evening, thank you very much. My name is Brüksel TOBB, I'm a TOSED member.
No, there is a button. Push the green button.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I guess it's both a comment, maybe also a question. I'd like to hear your views on the crises that the EU has had over the last, especially 5 years. Obviously, economic crises, actually for the last 10 years. But in particular, I'm thinking of Poland and Hungary. So problems with these two member states on, as you know very well, on judicial reform and also freedom of the press. What do you think about the impact that these problems have had on EU accession? And I mean, that's why I guess it's a half comment and half a question, because I personally think, and I think most people would think that these problems have, if anything, really underlines the importance of the full package, of the rules of the EU, and of the difficulty of sanctioning or disciplining an existing EU member state, even though they are a member state, if they start failing in a crucial area, in particular rule of law. But I would be curious to have your views. Thank you.
The economic crisis of 5 years ago just showed that markets do not coordinate themselves. There is no such thing. If they find an opportunity, they will go deep. Then they will go deeper, and then they will explode and wait for the state to salvage them. So this was a nice lesson we learned. About Hungary and about Poland. It's true that, as I told you before, there was no blueprint what we could do as a European Union when a country was bankrupt, as Greece was. There was nothing written on the treaties, nothing written on the handbook, how to. So we had to improvise and then work with Greece again and again. The same is with Poland and Hungary. There is no way that we would, our forefathers, thought about a country denouncing liberal democracy, as Mr. Orban does, and says, I love Putin, I love the authoritarian democracy. I get elected, and then, with European money, I control the press, so I'm re-elected again and again, and I get more money to control more my country. So, we didn't believe, naively, that this could happen. And now trying to find a way out, and we can't. We have launched the procedure of a slap on the wrist. And we tried and still haven't found the way. So this also influences the relations with Turkey. No, because we know that we have to pass so many steps in the relations with Turkey that we will have put in place the mechanism to stop these things from happening. Because once they happen, it's very difficult to take them back. But still, we are working. On that end, we see that it's also spreading, because as I told you, it's nice for people to think there is another way. And when they understand that this way is not that good as it seemed, it's very late, because the power is in the party that controls the country, no legislative. The press is always supporting the party, so thousands of people don't listen to anything else except what this good party does. So it is the challenge we have to meet this year elections, and then the next committee and the next parliament and council will have to find measures. My opinion is we have multi-speed Europe. You cannot have an illegal democracy and illiberal democracy and be on the core of Europe. So we make circles. And with these circles, we carry on. And because democracy, liberal democracy, really works, very soon we see the distance. And it is an example. You want to be on sphere 3, on stage 3, stay there. Control the press. Don't have judiciary, but don't ask for positive things that happen on the circle, on the main circle. This is working by example, but I'm not running the EU, so I don't know if that may happen, but I think it's the only way.
Maybe you can even suspend membership in the future.
I don't like this word suspension to be heard.
If you suspend our process, you can suspend membership too. Why not? Any other questions? Last one.
Mehmet Türköz, I'm Vice President of TÖSED-BUSINESSTÜRK. Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. KYRKOS. I would like to ask you, imagine map of Europe. I can see two red points in this map. Kosovo and Bosnia. Why two red points if it is a problem of democracy in this country? Kosovo is only 2 million people. If it is economical problem, also 2 million people, donc it's easy for Europe for assimilation. I think it's the same problem with Turkey. Donc the problem is religion. I don't know. What do you think?
As I told you before, unfortunately, Europe is not a mother. So we don't run countries. By we, I mean Europe. I'm not representing Europe, but let's say Europe is not running countries. So even if Kosovo is that small, if the people themselves don't want to change the situation and the institutions in their country, Europe cannot force them to. And it should be legal to force them, because it may come with sanctions or economic intervention, but it shouldn't. It's the people's decision to work going towards the European standards. There's no other way. So Kosovo, Bosnia, but didn't say Albania, because Albania is in much, much better position. We're discussing about the date of starting negotiations than Kosovo, and Albania is also a Muslim country. But we have 1 million Albanians in Greece, except some nationalists in both countries. The rest of the population works and lives together every day. So it's not that they're Muslims, because we have found a way of cooperating. 1 million in 10. So 10% of the population were Albanians before the crisis. So it's a matter how there is the will to follow the European norms. And although we discuss about Kosovo visa, I'm very afraid personally that it is far from being realistic to think for a free regime on visa. I hope Turkey with the 7, which mainly is 1, the terror law, if we manage to overcome, because Turkey did an amazing job in 68 steps in a very short time. But then we had the coup, and then everything changed. Okay, we can understand the difficulties, but still there must be these changes which are for all countries, not specifically for Turkey or for Kosovo or for Bosnia. So I don't think it's because they're Muslims. Turkey, on the other side, some people in Europe see the strength and the numbers in Turkey, and they're afraid. But as I say, if you know a place in earth which has nice Christians ready to come to Europe, tell me, and I will ask them to come. But if there is no such place, then our neighbor is the first choice. We have to work together, because we need millions of people moving to Europe. And you have a young generation which could move to work, as one of the liberties of Europe is freedom of movement. So that's about Muslims. Questions? Yes, Sarah, please.
Well, thank you very much for being here. I was working for the Ministry for EU Affairs since its establishment. So I was really very critical to Turkey as well, because as Mr. Nuray mentioned, I was preparing the contribution of Turkey's progress report. So you can imagine that I was collecting contribution from 62 ministries, what they did last year in their Aki chapter, and trying to harmonize them and send them to European Commission. So I read all of the progress report and the contribution. I was and I'm the person who believe the Turkey's accession process from bottom of my heart. And I really visited each and every city in Turkey just to talk about the benefits of Turkey's membership to EU. But today I'm very critical to EU as well, not only Turkey. Yes, we should do more. Yes, EU has rules. We have to obey these rules. Yes, all these rules are beneficial to Turkey as well. But Turkey has never received any membership perspective from EU as they did for Balkan countries, Western Balkans. Now they are, I don't know, maybe they will suspend the accession negotiations. It's already suspended, in fact. The legal basis, Ankara Agreement, it's not working anymore. We couldn't meet since 2015 with the EU in high level. Association Council cannot meet anymore. So it's not working. But suspension means, okay, bye, but keep in touch. I really wonder if EU has any B plan in their mind. I mean, okay, they have value prices, they have many hot topic. Turkey is not hot topic for the EU, I can understand it. But they don't want to say goodbye, but they want to say keep in touch. So does it mean something else? I mean, because we also discussed the future of the EU, maybe differentiated integration or such kind of different kind of integration. Do you think it's the first step of such kind of integration as well?
The question, as you also put it very wisely, is not what the EU rules are. The question is, does Turkey need these reforms? Until Turkey says, I don't care about Europe, but I really need these reforms, no real progress will happen. And I told you from experience, because we in Greece live the same thing. We haven't embraced the reforms. 8 years we fight, not doing these reforms, and then we say, but 8 years we do what you told us. No, we didn't, because still the political system does not want to give the clientelistic state that goes against these reforms, a state that belongs to parties or to the party. All these reforms are against that, because if the party puts the finger, then business suffers, people suffer, freedom suffers, judiciary suffers. So we have a clientelistic state in Greece. And this state, transmitted, given, inherited from party to the other, it works. So no reforms. If you don't understand that these reforms are yours, no accession process will carry on, because you will never oblige Turkey to do that. And we will sit on the table discussing what we can do, and do we say goodbye, do we give time to our relation, I need space. We have seen this in personal relations. It's not for us. We want to have a vision, which is the membership, and we want to work for the reforms. But also, I must admit that you are right. If we don't manage to push this report away, and the Council decides that termination, is this the end of the road? No. We will find ways. But why go the most difficult of the all possible ways? Keep the accession process alive. Europe is changing, Turkey is changing, the world is changing faster. And if comes a day, very soon, with a Europe of many speeds, then to which circle is Turkey getting entrance? The outmost, the middle, the core? We have to see, to discuss. New things are on the table. But until we reach that time, and Europe is also changing, as I told you, trying to find, because we cannot work with Greece and Hungary on the same table, because Hungary says not one refugee, Greece receives tens of thousands. So either we find a way, or it's a double speed Europe, or a triple speed, because you have also other issues that separate us. So until we reach a stable Europe, because it will be constantly changing, then we can find where Turkey locks in the European family. But it's unthinkable of having tools, throwing them out of the window, saying, okay, you make even more difficult the cooperation, because by difficulties we will find the best way. No. Keep the dream alive, keep the relations at this stage, accession, and if we find new ways of cooperating, if we find this Europe with many speeds that can embrace Turkey even before fulfilling all the chapters, why not? But don't make the life worse than it is, more difficult than it is. This is my position about
No, I think we also add something about this technicality of the negotiation. And of course, Europe is not our mother. I think tonight we have learned all of this very good tonight. And but still, it's a kind of friend, or since very long time we have been friends with Europe. We are allies with most of the European countries. So we have shared the burden of the defense, for example, in order to defend Europe against something somewhere, etc. But I think with regard to the process, Turkey, of course, has its shortcomings. But there is also some political and technical shortcomings from the European side, like these blockages of the chapters. Because most of the chapters are blocked by some countries for uniquely political reasons. And the worst of it, for example, France's reason, is directly related to the membership aid. So they say that because it's about membership, we don't want this chapter to be open. So it makes Turkey a little bit a different type of candidate with regard. And that's why when Turkish politicians say that they are treated not equally with the others, they have a point. And this sentiment of injustice, I think, should be avoided. And to this injustice, now we are adding this suspension thing, etc. We know that most of the criticisms from Europe are coming on judicial system, etc. So why don't we open the chapters related to that? So we keep them closed, and then we are continuing to criticize Turkey on it. So isn't it the best way to make constructive criticism towards Turkey while negotiating these chapters? I think this is the technicality of the European Union. So that's what we know. Thank you very much.
No, it's not. It's clearly absurd to keep, especially these chapters, closed. I mean, I wouldn't mind keeping one chapter about penguins closed, but these two, about the judiciary, about the rule of law, keeping them closed, there is the question of Cyprus, and as I come from Greece, I don't want to evade it. In my opinion, the phrase that unlocks the Cypriot case is the wealth of the island and of the area around the island belongs to its two communities and will be enjoyed by them as soon as the solution is accepted. This is how we should proceed and turn the wealth of the hydrocarbons that exist south, north, west, east of the island into a tool to bring the solution that the UN says about two communities, two zones in the island, people living harmonically in this island, enjoying the wealth, tourism and hydrocarbons that exist. It's two separate things, membership and Cyprus, but working on both is a must, and by using this wealth, so it falls not only to the two communities of the island, but also Turkish side, the Turkish state, Turkish Republic has a huge influence on the one community. We don't have as Greeks on the other, they're their own, crazy Greeks sometimes we call them, but I'm sure that you know that the influence of Turkey is very strong, so it's also, with influence comes responsibility. And we may lost the chance in 2004, and I was in favor of the Annan Plan to give a chance to the island, and if it doesn't work, okay, let's see other solutions, I don't know if they exist. I was in favor, we lost the referendum, but chances come again and again, and Turkey also should push when one of these chances appear because the generations of people that once lived together are going away in Cyprus. And then, I don't know if I read Madame Actionnaires' plans of integrating the whole island to Turkey, but the whole, yes, not the north part, the whole, yes. So
I'm glad you witnessed this, but it will never end there. It took 15 minutes for one question only. No, altogether. This one question took 15 minutes. Yeah.
If I start, we will have
never end. How nice to hear politicians and diplomats are talking forever. Let them talk forever without solution. And let me explain you this suspension issue in a language that we ordinary people, even Yalchin, can understand. It is like, I have a friend, really. He's got a fiancée for 20 years, and to suspend the relationship. And she wants to go to the lady and says, how to say, let's suspend our marriage process, or whatever target, and let's keep it as a strategic relationship. Can you convince her, please? Or it's something like this. It will just leave a bitter taste. It's not the same sort. Better is keeping the... I will explain you later. His wife is like that, otherwise she will. If it's very short, just make your comment.
Yeah.
Seval.
Okay, I don't know. Can you change the issue?
Yeah. So, yes.
Mr. Kirkos, thanks for your presentation and more importantly, thanks for your support. But I have a question to Mr. Solatova. As an ordinary citizen, Mr. Solatova, I have read that lately our government is focusing on this European Union related reforms. And I think last week, 6 ministers, why don't you tell us what are we doing as a Turkey? Sure.
I think the second meeting of the reform group, yeah, and so it has been made, and So this group has its the interior minister, the foreign minister, minister of justice, etc. So it overlooks more or less the reforms to be done in order to align Turkey to the EU line. But still, it would be very easy if the chapter related to that work was open. So that's what I was trying to do. So that's why I didn't want to go to the Cyprus problem. It would be Cyprus, and I have mentioned on purpose France, not Cyprus. But there are some other countries who have blocked our chapters. Yeah, I said that. You have to listen carefully. That's why. So I said that. So this is also a part of the problem, a part of the political problem, which has nothing to do with the technical organization process of Turkey. We should overcome this in order to continue our goals.
One last question, maybe. Two last questions.
Firstly, I would like to thank you, everyone. Okay. For me, as someone who had worked for a long time with the Social Democrat Party in Turkish Parliament, and I'm also now continuing my postdoc project at the verildi. There is one question. Maybe my question is a little bit different. We all know that business and politics is always linked to each other. Now here, the question is that how can we use the business based on the EU support or develop democracy in Turkey?
It's very interesting, because what I told you about the model we have in Europe, and it is working, it is a side that usually it's more difficult to understand, because it's easy to say freedom of the press. If a journalist is locked in jail, there is no freedom of the press. So how business could work? Let's see, we have this modernization of the customs union, which is something Europe and Turkey should work on. And the Commission had already said, yes, do it, but then after the coup, we stepped back. This modernization means new rules for services, procurement, public procurement, and agricultural products. What they have to do with democracy? A lot. Public procurement usually is the way the state is linked with business. So independent rules that allow business to participate in public procurement usually reduce the power of the party state. So it's democracy. And the more business that take part in this procedure, the more open it becomes, the more democratic it becomes. The other is how we resolve disputes. The courts do resolve disputes, but if the courts are not independent, then the decisions are one-sided. And if the decisions are one-sided, business do not come, or they come through corrupted ways. But step one was to open business to a safe environment, a real competitive. So we need justice to work, so we have investments that are real and not produce more corruption than gains to society. And then we have, let's say, agriculture. So the state supports fisheries. So fisheries can be competitive to Europe, but then fisheries are not really competitive, and in any change they suffer and they lose their jobs, because you cannot feed them with public money all the time, or transport, or other products. So by making the economy stand on its feet, it's also moving into the area of real competitiveness and more democratic relations, because they are not governed by the party state. So we see that by making just this modernization of the customs union, which is delayed, we have done it 10 years ago, because it benefits both sides, we also could have allowed reforms to happen in Turkey. Judiciary reforms, economic reforms, reduction of the clientelistic state, change in the relation between ruling parties and businesses and people. Why don't we do it? My reply, why don't do it? It was as before.
The most used word was reform. That means it's the crucial thing. There's a Stockholm group or something, they had a book. You read it, how to convince politicians to reform. They say it's the most difficult thing. So maybe we should distribute this book to every politician.
But there was another question over there.
Yes, Erkan Özdemir from Muscat, Belgium, but I don't want to speak about in the name of Muscat, Belgium. This is my proper opinion. My question is, and it will be a different, and I will assume this situation a bit different. My point of view is there is some dislocation and there is some failures in the framework of Europe, I think. For example, when we see the problem of Brexit, or the handling of refugees in Europe, or again the problem of extreme rightization of some country in Europe. So I can say that there is a lot of problem in Europe. And I want to ask you, and I'm so sorry for this question to the context person, but just like you, do you think that this is normal, or there is maybe a trend that the changing mind for the Europe is not the same than Jean Monnet or Jacques Delors from before? And don't you think that there is a changing in mind of citizens?
You're right. We have huge problems, and problems also in structural problems, not problems of specific decisions. The issue that we work fine with Turkey, which is refugee issue, and we are grateful for Turkey for receiving 4 million refugees. We received 1 and almost collapsed, unheard of, but politically we could not manage. And since 2015, where we started having this problem, and 2016 with the common agreement, we worked fine with Turkey. Greece is receiving a small trickle of refugees, but since then we haven't managed to make a common European policy for asylum, the Dublin regulation. And last week, the President, Mr. Juncker, said we can't. This is a failure of colossal dimensions. Because we are talking about some hundreds of thousands on a continent that needs millions. And we cannot accept that we need millions. And we cannot handle some hundreds of thousands or some tens of thousands. So we failed. And this is a structural failure. And we will move through that to the circles in Europe, different speeds. It is one of the issues that will push us to that direction, because the countries of Visegrad, Eastern Europe and Central Europe do not want to see a refugee. They want Greece and Italy and Spain to get them all, and we will not. And Germany needs also refugees, and they know it. So, yes, we are moved from the forefathers. And the clouds are very dark, but at the same time we know, as UK understands now, that Europe is precious. So there will be solutions, but they will not be with unanimity. They will not be for all of us the same. So Europe will change. And every change has difficulties. And we will move through my country, which is for the moment non-competitive economically, will be very troubled. But do we look away? There's no way. So we stick to Europe. We try to transform it to something that is reacts to challenges, to crises, to undemocratic forces growing, to illiberal democracies, to neighbors that are very difficult to work with, but we do want to work with. There's no other way. And for me, as a parliamentarian, we have extreme right wing there, and we have a loony left on the side. What do we do? There's no other way. There's no other way for Europe without Turkey. There's no other way of Turkey without Europe. There's no other way for Europe except moving and solving problems. But for the moment, I cannot hide it from you. The promises that we gave to ourselves first and to our children second are not fulfilled. And we're in a very grave danger during these elections or the next years. But we all, and as I told you on the beginning, I want you, if you can, to support our fight in the Parliament for EU and Turkey. Don't kill that dream. And also it falls to our European citizens to stand up and fight for what they believe, except not watching the extreme right wing and nationalist and populist powers growing. They have to fight. We forgot how to fight. And as I told you, I don't believe in the difficult way to teach you things, but when the difficult time comes, you fight more. This is only what I can say. Before we go away, I did not want to link it with this discussion because it is not linked. But I want to invite you all on Tuesday, the 8th of January, because I am a member of the JPC and because I worked with Turkish people for 5 years and I really learned about this process and I met a huge number of wonderful people, and I really tell you, it's a shame when we talk about European ideals, and sometimes I hear from Turkish people saying about European ideas, our ideals. So because I learned so much, I invited 10 NGOs, 11 NGOs and 2 professors. Child with leukemia, blind people, women beaten by their husbands, children without parents and without a future. The best, not the best, there are so many that I have a huge pick, but important NGOs that I have an event in the Parliament, Faces of Turkey, civil society. Because this is what I believe I have to show to the Parliament, not to tell them, see, they're good people, vote. No, don't kill their dream. I will say it anyhow. But to show in the Parliament, and even if they are not there because, you know, they pass and go events, they will learn and they will hear, they will see the website, they will see the press, they will see the poster, to see faces of Turkey in the Parliament. Because when we say Turkey in the Parliament, everybody says Erdogan. Okay, Erdogan is the president. But Turkey will be there for hundreds of years. And the faces of Turkey that I have met are precious to me. And these faces I showed to the Parliament. This is what I can. So you are all invited on that evening. Ishil is my assistant. She's Turkish. And we work a year and a half together. Amazing girl, and helped me learn even more about Turkey. But it will be a nice evening dedicated to the faces of Turkey that I really enjoy the most, the power, the extremely powerful civil society that you have. So you're all invited.
8 Ocak toplantısını bir kez daha hatırlatayım ben şimdi söyleyeyim. Müsiat arkadaşımız, başka var mı başka derneklerden? Müsiat'tan başka Hep Müslüman. Tanıdığınız derneklere de haber verebilir misiniz? Eğer bize söylerseniz tanınacak kişileri, hem dernek adıyla hem temsil edecek kişi adıyla ben Işıl Hanım'a iletirim. Gerçekten en az 30-40 kişilik bir Türk grubu ve 8-10 Türk derneği, kurumu, her ne bir araya getirebilirse getirip orada olmaya çalışalım, yardımcı olalım. Burada işler böyle dönüyor. Tamam. Tekrar bu konuyu görüşelim.
So just for the closure, I'd like to thank you all for being here tonight, especially to Mr. KYRKOS, who was our guest speaker. Thank you very much, Mr. KYRKOS, for all your support in our accession process to EU. Just, I would like to offer you a little something, just